I want to say that the ACC is easy to power rate. Nothing's ever as easy as it sounds, of course. I'm giving it a stab. I have a clear-cut number one, which makes it somewhat easy. When you have a starting point, you can let things snowball. You can let things roll along. Clemson is clearly, very clearly, and should be on paper. Talk about them, hype them up, give them big expectations for the season. They're the preseason number one team in the ACC in my book. They have got a high-level returning production. They won the conference championship game a season ago. And you also consider they've got Cade Klubnik, who's still playing quarterback there somehow in a season of college football where quarterbacks are either inexperienced or new to their team. Now, Will Howard was new to his team last year at Ohio State. That, of course, went very, very well. But the Cade Klubniks, the Drew Allers, the Garrett Nussmeyers of the world, they just don't exist all that often. There's a lot of new, whereas with Clemson, it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same players. It's the exact same system. It's the same quarterback. I still think Dabo Swinney can coach. Hot take, Dabo Swinney can still coach. Clemson should be the preseason number one team in the ACC. They're number one in my power rankings. And number two, I have Miami. Now, this is contingent upon Carson Beck staying healthy. Of course, he had the injury last year at Georgia. Didn't throw much, if at all, during, I think he threw a little bit during spring ball with the Hurricanes. I know what Carson Beck is. He can be volatile. He can also throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's the range. He can throw 3 interceptions while he does it, but he could go for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns if you throw it enough. We know Miami is willing to throw the football now under Mario Cristobal more than he was perhaps during his time at Oregon. But Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, just coached Cam Ward into being the number one pick in the NFL draft. He could put Carson Beck squarely back into the top 10 of the NFL draft in 2026 with this upcoming season. No Xavier Restrepo to throw the ball to, but Miami feels pretty good. And no Elijah Arroyo, but they feel good about who they're going to throw the football to. So they have to be better on defense. I think they will be. They won't be as good on offense because Carson Beck is not Cam Ward. They're different players. Ward is much more creative, much more mobile, and Beck is much more about playing within the structure of an offense. But that offense looked pretty darn good last year. So you keep him healthy, Miami should be the number 2 team in the ACC. You don't keep him healthy, Miami could have a Florida State sort of season like last year because I don't think they're crazy about the quarterback options they have, which is why they went out and got Carson Beck. So, got to keep him upright, but that offensive line that Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal have built should be able to do that. At number 3, speaking of quarterbacks that I like, Louisville. And Miller Moss, I don't just like him because I had him on the show a while back. I've always been a Miller Moss fan. I did not think he was the problem at USC. He goes to one of the most underrated quarterback whisperers in the country in Jeff Brom at Louisville, who has done a lot with not elite quarterback play. Tyler Shuck was good last year. And by the way, Louisville was a good team. Walked into Clemson and kicked the Tigers all over the field. I mean, they went on a hunting expedition and just spread the guts of the Tigers all over that field. I still can't believe that happened, quite frankly, because that's a top 10, 15 environment in all of college football. And Louisville said, yeah, well, this isn't that hard. But they have to be more consistent. I think Miller Moss, though, does allow them to push for a conference championship game appearance this year. Sneaky potential playoff contender there, the Louisville Cardinals. At number 4, I'm not going where most people would probably go here. Georgia Tech. Haynes King is still there. He and Cade Klubnik, man, they have been quarterbacks in this league for a long time. I mean a long, long time. Georgia Tech was, of course, everyone's favorite team for a little while last year when they upset Florida State, sent the Seminoles into a death spiral for their 2024 season. But what we all forget about Georgia Tech is not just that they beat, well, we don't forget they beat FSU. I think people forget that they were one play away about 8 times from beating Georgia on the road, the SEC champions. Georgia Tech is my favorite dark conference championship dark horse in any league in the country. I would have that be Illinois, except the top of the Big Ten is so darn good. The top of the ACC, I think, is much more gettable. Yes, Clemson is going to be an elite team this year. But Louisville and Miami, that's a lot easier to catch than, say, Oregon and Penn State over in the Big Ten, which is who I'd rank Illinois behind, putting them fourth as a dark horse contender. Georgia Tech, do not be surprised if the Yellow Jackets wind up in the ACC championship game this year. I won't be. They play some fun games. And don't be surprised if this year, at home, they figure out a way to try and beat Georgia. So, at number 5, I've got SMU. Kevin Jennings returns after a good, productive season last year. Rhett Lashley's a good coach. SMU's invested heavily in their roster. Big transfer portal class. I think their roster will be good. I know their staff can win games. Their schedule is much tougher. I think they're a good team. I can see them getting back to the ACC title game. I don't think they will. I think last year they took advantage, which they deserve credit for. They took advantage of a weaker schedule. I think they wind up in the 8-9 win range after going 11-1 last year, just behind SMU. And I thought about flipping these teams. I really did. You know who quietly had a 9-win season in a Power 4 conference last year? Duke. Duke was this close to beating Miami. They had, what was it? I think a 17-point lead in the third quarter of that game on the road. By the way, they collapsed defensively. Cam Ward did what Cam Ward just kind of does, which is score a bunch of points really quickly. Duke had a 28-17 lead in this football game, and then oh man, what a run! Then there was a 36-3 run by Miami in the second half. But start of the third quarter, Duke took a 28-17 lead. Who's the quarterback? Oh, that's right. Darian Mensah, who was a highly coveted target, could have gone to the SEC, decides to go to Duke instead. They're starting to invest in football. Manny Diaz, a solid coach, rock solid. He wasn't a disaster at Miami. He just wasn't great. And he's getting a second chance at Duke. I've got them right there behind SMU and just ahead of Pitt, who started 7-0, and I don't need to remind Pitt fans what happened in the second half of last year. I might have, you know what? I'm making an on-the-fly adjustment here to my rankings that I prepped for this segment. I'm moving Pitt down 1. I'm moving Syracuse up 1. I think Steve Angeli could be solid if he winds up starting at quarterback. And if the Orange and Fran Brown figure out the quarterback position, I'm bullish on Fran Brown. Haven't talked about him in far too long here on the show. So I'll have Syracuse, then Pitt. Virginia Tech and Cal are programs cut from the same cloth. They are trying to get back to what they used to be and always should have been. The potential is so very real, but the on-field results just don't match what should happen. Should. That's why we say things are on paper and theoretical and should happen. Well, Cal and Virginia Tech should be able to have an 8 or 9 win season, and for some reason they just won't. I picked Virginia Tech to win 10 games last year, and they won 6. They lost to Vandy week 2. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Vandy, of course, turned out to be solid. But Virginia Tech, I think Brent Pry's under a pretty solid amount of pressure. You had year 1, you got better in year 2, and I thought year 3, oh boy, it was 7-6. Here we go. Took a step back, went 6-7. That's not good. That's not great. Do they have a solid team? I think they should. I think their staff is under some heat, so they should. Virginia Tech and Cal should both coach with some urgency. I will take the Hokies over the Bears. I don't know by how much, but I'll take maybe because there's the Ron Rivera cloud kind of hanging over Justin Wilcox, and I'm not entirely sure how that situation plays out. But Virginia Tech, then Cal, NC State, Boston College, Virginia. Frankly, you could put any of these teams in any order, and I wouldn't have a significant pushback. NC State was another team last year that I thought would do well, that I thought would do better, that I thought would have, that step forward kind of moment. And boy, Tennessee took them to the woodshed early in the year last season. And I mean, Dave Doran's a good coach. NC State's solid, but I'd put NC State above Boston College and Virginia. I'll say that. You can swip BC and the Cavaliers if you'd like. I have not yet mentioned Florida State. Now I am. I close out this list with North Carolina, Wake Forest, and Stanford. I remain down on the Bill Belichick situation, but Florida State is going to be a better football team. Let's not lose sight and fall victim to brand bias of how horrific they were last season. I mean truly, truly awful. The worst preseason top 10 team in the history of college football, and one of the worst Power 4 teams in recent memory. Now, You go and upgrade your offensive staff, getting Gus Malzahn, former UCF head coach. You go get the Nebraska defensive staff, which is a great move for Mike Norvell. You go add more pieces heavily in the transfer portal, and they need to do more in the high school recruiting ranks, but on the field this year, they'll be better. Their staff will be better. Some of their players, I think, can be an improvement. Castellanos at quarterback, we know he's confident going into the Alabama game, which I don't know if that's the best idea. Poking the bear a little bit as a 12.5-point road underdog, but hey, you do you, Thomas Castellanos. Florida State does not deserve benefit of the doubt to be higher than where I have them on this list. They really don't, just because they went out and did some nice things in the offseason. You wouldn't give that level of respect to, imagine if Boston College did that. Imagine if, let's say Jeff Hafley was still the head coach. Or no, let's say Bill O'Brien goes 2-10 this year. He fires his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator and brings in an upgrade at quarterback. Would you move Boston College up to the middle of the pack in your power rankings? Or would you say they got to prove it first? That's where Florida State is for me. So Stanford rounds out the list, but my ACC power rankings to review: Clemson, Miami, Louisville, Georgia Tech, SMU, Duke, Pitt, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Cal, NC State, Boston College, Virginia, Florida State, North Carolina, Wake Forest, and the Stanford Cardinal. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.